I am only going to be a couple of minutes just to suggest a couple lines of inquiry for you during your own reading of the lessons this morning. You notice that I introduced Psalm 29. One of the things somebody pointed out to me early this morning during my sermon, sort of interrupted and said, "Did you see the sunrise this morning?" And I said, "Of course. What are you, for real?" And the only thing I noticed about the sunrise this morning was on 80 coming in is that the sun was in my eyes. That's what I noticed. But I understand that it was gorgeous and it was beautiful. And there are just things out there all around which are absolutely beautiful and gorgeous and which are just what's called in theology lingo, ordinary grace. Stuff which is just present and available and accessible and is there presented for us for our enjoyment and pleasure. And that Psalm 29, when I said to you, I'm not saying that an earthquake or a mudslide is a wonderful event to have happen to anyone, but when you think about it, if there are no people around and it happens, you'll notice, how does it talk about the mountain? It skips like a young deer, like a young animal skipping along. I've never thought of an earthquake like that, and I haven't thought of a mudslide as glorifying God. But if people are not there and there's no damage of human to human life and animal life, you know, it's really quite a lovely image to be thinking about the common and the ordinary parts of God's grace, the beauty which is present and the interesting stuff which goes with it. Now, the other thing, in the lessons this morning, you must understand that in order for you to have your attention gotten by the Lord, you must have chaos in your life. If you don't have chaos in your life, you are going to be A, a bore, and B, you're going to be saying, life is so dull. Nothing interesting ever happens. And that is precisely what in the world of the Lord, looking at the world as we live in it, will do is to draw your attention by causing you to live and have circumstances in your life that cause chaos. You'll notice the Bible begins with Genesis 1 with chaos. It doesn't begin with order, but it begins, in fact, with chaos. And what happens with that, it is not described by any stretch of the Bible language or understanding as anything bad. It is simply an invitation for you to pay attention to the chaos which exists or the confusion, and your attraction is drawn to it, and then you have to address it. And that then, your address, is your spiritual gifts being put into use. Your gifts of creativity, imagination, all of the skills that you can muster, sometimes self-control, sometimes joy. You don't know what will be called forth out of you, except that in the chaos, there will be present an invitation for you to bring some order to that which is not orderly now. So, to be thinking about chaos and disorder, you have to be thinking also about order. And your life, of course, is at the intersection or the border and boundary of both at the same time. I'm sure some of you getting up this morning and trying to get your acts together, to get up, get dressed, get organized, get to church and all of that stuff, you were in a certain level of chaos. And yet, out of that, you pulled together enough orderliness that you could arrive here today, taste a smile on your face. Even if you wanted to bite somebody's head off, too bad. Put a smile on it anyway, because that's what you do. Out of the chaos comes a certain level of order. And that is one of the affirmations throughout the Bible, that God will bring an invitation to you in chaos, confusion, and disorder, to bring a sense of order and boundaries to that which does not presently exist. I had occasion to talk to some folks from city. They lived there, and they were just having a chaotic mess of a marriage. It was just totally screwed up, and well, that's why they called, of course. So I said, okay, so what's going on? Well, I got home last night from work, and I found my clothing and my stuff sitting out on my front lawn. I said, you don't have a front lawn. You got concrete. Oh, don't get smart with me, minister. My concrete lawn is my lawn, and my stuff was out there, and I'm now over at my relative's house. And so on and so on. We went in that conversation, and it was very interesting what the chaos was. It was all about roles in the house and roles in the money, because she was making a whole buttload of money, a lot more than he was, and he happened to be a super good cook and a super good house cleaner. But they refused to get their heads screwed on straight and to use that in some kind of healthy, functional fashion, and were constantly banging heads, because he'd constantly be switching jobs, looking for bigger money so that he could make at least as much as his wife was making, which would not give him time to be the good cook that he is, and so she would have to cook, and she's absolutely terrible. Don't ask how I know this. Just trust me that I do. But in any case, you see, out of that chaotic mess, all of a sudden now, they're beginning to bring a sense of orderliness by thinking it through and realizing what their gifts are. And each of them have very specific, very wonderful gifts, which they have not been using very well in an interconnected kind of way that you would expect. And so they will start to do that. And out of that chaos, disorder, and separation, they will bring it back together, because they're starting to recognize that each of them brings something to the plate, to their marriage, to their life, to their relationship, which is healthy and upbuilding and good. But first, the chaos and disorder. And that is precisely the way in which God shaped the world on day one. In the void and in the chaos, all of a sudden comes something very wonderful. Daylight. It is the first wonderful thing that comes. And then the nighttime, so that you can see the Christmas lights, which I take it most of you have taken it down by this time. Yours are still up. Yeah, mine are still up. They'll be up until whenever I decide to take them down, which might be, I don't know, May. But that's all right. I was reading an interesting article on economics by a Lester Thoreau. Points out, and Keith and some of you who work, Doug, that work for corporations, I don't know whether this holds true for you guys or not, points out that there's a number of new rules for individuals, for companies, and for nations, including this one. No society or company that values order above all else will be creative. But without some degree of order, creativity disappears. In other words, we function best at the border of chaos and order. That makes sense? Okay. I hope that makes sense to all of you, because in your own household, you function best at the border of creativity and chaos and order. If you're going to be all orderly, your house is going to be completely boring and dullards. And then you will say out of your mouth, I'm so bored. Or There's nothing there. What am I going to do with myself? There's just nothing going on. And there's a zillion things going on. And on the other hand, if you're in that time of chaoticness, you're just running around like a nut job and being busy all the time and accomplishing next to nothing. I was reading another article about heat. Heat, of course, especially for those of you who have heat flashes, this really amuses me a lot and should help you guys and ladies out, since I have heat flashes myself. It should help you out in understanding me when I get cranky. Molecules create heat, and the more random the molecular order goes, the more heat is created. And yet, if heat is chaos, which it is, and life cannot exist without heat, then life cannot exist without chaos. Think about it. I mean, just all of those pieces of the puzzle go together. So, if I'm dead and laying up here, and I hope some of you will administer CPR before I'm totally gone. But if by chance you just chose to stare and say, "Oh, that's too bad," and you took my temperature and put me in there, my temperature would be 0, would it not? As it is, my temperature is whatever it's supposed to be, 98.6 or thereabouts. Heat is necessary for life, and heat is chaotic by definition and by scientific definition. So the randomness of heat is essential for all of us, and it occurs in our lives, and it has been built into the created order by God. And yet, the calling in the chaos is a calling specifically to you to use the gifts you've been given so that you can be creative, imaginative, explore your life, explore your character and personality, and just do all kinds of things because of the chaos. You're trying to bring order and meaning and purpose and understanding to it, but at the same time you're learning about life and about place and space. There's so many good gifts which have been given to us by the Lord that we typically don't pay attention to. So I shall remember that person at the early service this morning. I was feeling a little chaotic this morning because it was nippy, it was cold. I didn't feel like sitting in the car while it was warming up and all that stuff. And I was just out of sorts. But that was a good word. Did you see the sunrise this morning? It was gorgeous. I didn't, but that was a sense of warmth that brought some order to my life. Ordinary grace, common grace. It's all around us. Mostly all you got to do is look around. You'll see it. Amen.